The rings book that I did was entirely hypertrophy focused. And it's one of those things where I think you could make the case of, if you want to get the most muscular, gym stuff, stable stuff, machines. I mean, if you look at the top IFBB pros, basically the stuff they do, right? However, Daniel doing that stuff, him coming to my gym and mostly doing workouts with that style of training, he was better at that than me trying the calisthenics stuff. We did just like a very short, like me attempting a front lever. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was not, hopefully that footage doesn't see the light of day ever.
Don't worry, Jeff. It's right at the end of the video. Watch time. Maybe 20% of people say that.
Right.
It's a treat for people who watch to the end. But I think there is something to that where, I forget who said this, but they were asked, "Oh, what sport would you have your kid do in order to transfer over to everything?" And I think gymnastics was the response. Because, yeah, I've heard of gymnasts deadlifting 400 or 500 pounds their first time in the gym. They had the grip strength, they had the core strength, they had the mobility, everything.
Yeah.
Whereas you take a bodybuilder who's only ever been sitting down on machines, and they just can't do a lot of stuff, right? They can't run, they can't jump, mobility is an issue, and there is something to that idea of, bodybuilders get muscle bound. It's not necessarily true, but it's definitely sometimes true. And so there was a point in my training, maybe a year or two ago, where everything was stable. Everything was like the most stable variation. And I lost core strength. I could feel it. Like I lost the ability to, I took out walking lunges for a while, and then I tried to put them back in. I could barely do a set of lunges with a decent weight. And I was like, all right, this is not good. Like, I need to keep some of this stuff in, where on paper it might not be optimal, but it's probably best in the long term, because your body, it's not just muscle groups. It's not just, I'm working this fiber. I think there is something to be said with some movements that are a little bit more holistic, or they do require some balance, which I don't have a good sense of balance. And so having some of those movements in there that, biomechanically on paper, maybe they're not stimulating any particular muscle group super, super well, but that's not all exercise is.
Yeah. No, that was really well said, Jeff. And it comes back to, he's got it, man. He's not fully embodying the calisthenics, but you're nearly there. I'm telling you, 2026 is Jeff's calisthenics arc, if not a bit later in this year, because he's going to cut down.
Well, I was going to say, once he gets lean, it's going to be...
That pull-up bar, that dip, it's tempting, man. And then you get a taste for it, and he's like, what's that handstand push-up like? But you get rewarded for building that foundation, really. I mean, if you're just interested in bodybuilding, do your free weight movements. We've gone so far away from them for all the major pressing patterns. If you're skipping out on doing your overhead press, you're pulling with just really stable variations, you're missing something for sure. I think it's just we've swung the other way, where we know that we can stimulate a ton of tension and like push really hard to failure with the machines. But just that simple heuristic of doing your balance, skill, technique, coordination movements at the start, then finishing with the machines, it makes you so well-rounded. And that's all we're doing in calisthenics. We have to get that scapular stability and the carryover to other things and the learning curve. You get rewarded for it if you're strong on calisthenics stuff.
Right. Yeah. The question about like what to get in early or what you would have your kids get in is really interesting, because I think, so there's multiple reasons I would be concerned about having a kid in gymnastics and wrestling because of like the weight restrictions. So obviously you have to be careful about that if you have a little kid and they're, the pressure to like be, a lot lighter than they should be. But from an athleticism standpoint and a bodily movement standpoint, I mean, I'll tell you, like, as somebody who just wrestled for a few years, I would have guys who were 50 plus pounds heavier than me, and their inability to do anything when you just throw them around, it's really comical how some of these big guys, there's just no sense of awareness. And it is common, like people, they assume I'm muscular, and so therefore I'm going to be athletic, or I'm muscular so I can fight, or whatever that is. And it's just a completely different skill set.
No. And it comes to integrating, if your goal is building muscle, movements that can still build you hypertrophy, but are getting in range of motion stuff as well. I'm a massive fanboy of the dumbbell pullover. So if you're doing
Okay.
this exercise and you're someone who's really jacked up in the thoracic, you're really hunched over, you can't open up. Same thing with your shoulders. You can't fully flex your shoulders overhead. Think about what the pullover is doing. It's getting that thoracic extension, it's getting your arms overhead, but you're also stimulating your upper body, chest, lats, triceps, teres. So, where possible, doing these movements with range of motion embedded into them allows you to get big, muscular, increased strength, but also have that flexibility too. So you're not just moving in these really restricted ranges, which will be problematic as we get older, especially into your 30s and beyond.
Jeff, I remember you saying that, down the road you would be looking for like what that next thing was, and you were like, would it be like martial arts or this or that? And I think you said probably not
Calisthenics.
powerlifting. Well, I was gonna say, like, I could see that, because you've been successful when you were an endurance guy, and you've been successful with the bodybuilding thing. And as you get older, because you're approaching 40 now, right? So you you're gonna want to live probably a leaner life, compared to like now. I don't think you're gonna be bulking up to 230. So I could see that being like a good thing for you.
Jeff made an interesting point in one of his stories that is worth us discussing here. It's what you're currently doing now. Can you sustain that for the rest of time? And do you want to sustain that for the rest of time? Because yeah, we can train hard when we've got enough available energy and time when we're still young, but in the future we're going to have to slightly shift directions because we can't train at our peak indefinitely. It's not realistic for elite athletes. It shouldn't be realistic for people that are just training as their main hobby that they do in their life. So I've thought about that extensively too, Jeff. It's yeah, how do you get that balance of, holding on to what you've worked so hard to have, muscle, strength, proficiency in different exercises, but then also letting go of that and trying new things?